Welcome back to the Bob Davis Podcast, sponsored by xgovernmentcars.com. This is Podcast 50, coverage of Election 2010. So, today I got up, got ready to leave the apartment, kind of in a rush, because I had an appointment for 1 p.m. That'll give you an idea of my schedule. And I kind of was in a rush to get down to the car and get out into the world. So I got downstairs, got into my ex-government car, headed on down to Starbucks to get my coffee. And then I headed on down to a local Vietnamese eatery for lunch with my friend Sue Jeffers. And as I was driving, I was thinking, you know, Sue's forgotten more about Minnesota politics than most people have learned in their entire life. She was a business owner for years in Minneapolis and ran for governor as an independent. She may run again, by the way, at some point. She combines life skill and knowledge with kind of a slash-and-burn philosophy or attitude about politics that is refreshing and sometimes infuriating to me and to other people. She was telling me how she made Tim Pawlenty mad the other day, and that very seldom do you see him get mad. She said she made him, the governor, mad. I needed to get Sue on the Bob Davis Podcast to fill in the local blanks, since you know, I tend to focus on international and national stuff. Now, my basic prediction for this election is probably impossible to predict. In other words, I'm saying it's impossible to predict this election no matter what kind of media hype there is. You have heard me talk about why. I'm going to talk about why in this podcast too with Sue. I think one of the three scenarios is what we're going to end up with. And so my prediction is really a three-way prediction. The most likely is that the Republicans have a modest election night, but not living up to the wild predictions the media's been hyping. The second is that the Democrats are going to hold on to control of both houses and the GOP busts, which I think is highly unlikely. The third scenario, which could happen, is that the Republican gain would be more than 54 seats in the House, which would be historic because in 1994, the last big GOP gain, they gained 54 seats. They would also gain at least 8 seats in the Senate. And I think if they actually push beyond that total, if they get 70, if they get 80 seats in the House or 10 seats in the Senate or whatever, it will be a truly historic night. Now, some have predicted the Republicans could win as many as 117 seats and the Senate. If that happens, I think Barack Obama will be a one-term president, because I think he would decline the opportunity to lead his party for the second term, since he would have such a repudiation on his hands. We'll see if that happens. That will be the big story on election night, if that happens. Now, Sue is much more bullish than I on the chances for Republicans in here in Minnesota, particularly in the governor's race, as well as the congressional races. That's another reason to talk to Sue, because I've been bursting a lot of bubbles lately, and I apologize for that. So I thought what I'd do is get somebody who had a little bit of gas for making bullish predictions about the Republicans, and Sue has that. So here we go. By the way, this was recorded kind of on the fly, and you know, when you're eating Vietnamese soup, you slurp your soup, so you're going to hear some slurping occasionally, and those hot peppers are really hot, so you're going to hear some sniffing occasionally, and I'm just warning you that you might hear some sound. And the place was kind of loud, so other than that, but you can hear everything really clearly, and I've endeavored to engineer it in such a way that you really can hear what's being said. So enjoy.
Spoon with Trouble Comes Running on 89.3 The Current. We are from Peter Wolf Kreider. Before that, local music from the Enter B record. It was Crutch and Cane. And Follow Us from Big Boy. Programming is supported by Bryant Heating and Cooling Systems, offering a reminder that tax credits for energy-efficient heating systems expire on December 31st. Ha! A dealer locator and other details are online at Bryant.com. Bryant, whatever it takes. And programming is supported by Top Shelf at 31st and Lindale in Minneapolis, offering custom shirts, suits, and accessories for those looking for an alternative experience in wardrobe building and all other professional tailoring services. More at TopShelfInc.com. His new record is called It's What I'm Thinking Part 1, Photographing Snowflakes. How apropos of this time, right? Badly Drawn Boy with Too Many Miracles on 89.3 The Current.
What's up? Lots of delays today.
You got a good spot? I got a good spot.
We're lucky.
I know. You hungry? I'm excited for the governor's race, though. I'm convinced Emmer's going to win, and I just hope enough people are listening.
Here's the thing. If Emmer's going to win, then how come it's not showing up in any of the polls? And you got even Rasmussen has Emmer behind by 3. And my concern is that in a state that is generally votes center-right and votes heavily Democratic, why don't the polls show some movement for Emmer at all? In fact, both he and Dayton are moving up and down. If you look at a trend, they move up and down together, and there's still that 4 or 5 point or 3 point gap between the two of them. I really, if I was supporting Emmer, I'd be worried about that. You know?
The reason that I'm not worried about it is because if you look at who they're polling, because of the 2000.
No, I've got that, but you've got also Rasmussen and Survey USA that show Dayton ahead too. Both of those correct for that Republican dearth.
I don't think they do.
Yeah, they do.
I don't think they do.
Survey USA is a Republican poll. So is Rasmussen.
I agree. They lean to the right. I agree with that. Okay,
you look at another race like Rand Paul, Kentucky, where he's moving. He's now got momentum moving. Last one I saw was it was about 5 points. Now it's 7, but he's moving back up, so the momentum is back with him.
I think it's very unfortunate that we didn't have another poll like today, and we're talking 5-6 days before the election, because what you saw in last week's poll was Horner's numbers tanked.
Well, no, Horner's going away.
Yeah, but Horner's done. He's gone. Stick a fork in him. He's toast. Okay, but what you saw is his numbers tank, and you didn't really see a big increase in Dayton or Horner, or Dayton or Emmer. And I think what you're starting to see now is you're going to see the break, and it's going to be, as always, in the last week of the election. And in this case, I think as people start to say, wait a minute, now I have to make a decision.
As independents decide which way the wind's going to blow.
Because it all comes down to that 6%. It all comes down to that 6%. Yeah. You've got Democrats who won't vote for Dayton.
I mean, I can't believe St. Louis County and Beltrami County and Olmsted County are just going to reject Mark Dayton. But here's the thing. You got all these SEIU, AFSCME goons out there, banging on doors and, stuffing ballot boxes and everything.
And they do in St. Louis County. You ask Mark Ritchie's staff where the biggest problem with appearing votes comes from, and they'll tell you it's CD8, St. Louis County. Which, by the way, during the primary, I might add, was the last area to turn in their numbers. And oh, look at that. Mark Dayton won.
I rest my case. Because, the election is not who's polled, it's not who you talk to, it's who actually ends up going to vote.
Right.
And who's making sure that those ballot boxes are locked down.
And it's an off-year election. So we're automatically going to have a lower turnout. Here's the thing with the get out and vote. That's why I had predicted a Margaret Anderson Kelleher win in the primary, because I thought the DFL ground game was phenomenal. I thought nobody did the get out and vote game better. And after I watched Margaret get beat, whether it's by ballots up in CD8 in St. Louis County, or whether it's because people weren't motivated to vote for, didn't care which one or the other, although in my opinion there's a big difference between a Margaret Anderson Kelleher and a Mark Dayton.
Why did they vote for Dayton in the end? Was it the name?
Had to be. If in a primary vote in the middle of the summer,
these, by the way.
You can. It's a primary vote in the middle of the summer, and who turns out for primary voters? Senior citizens. Mark Dayton has the name recognition that can't be beat. Anybody who hears him talk wouldn't want to vote for him.
Thank you.
Looks fantastic. fabulous. Smells fabulous.
Tastes great too. Anything else?
No. Oh, just Diet Coke.
Yes, you did say that. I don't remember.
Please. It's okay. The food was more important.
What was I going to say? So let's talk about the Minnesota State House and Senate and House. So, but when you look at the State House, how's the makeup look?
Okay, let's take a look at the Senate side first. You have 67 senators. Right now, we have 21 Republicans, and the rest are Democrats. The parties, both the Democrats and the Republicans, have picked 4, 5, 6 key races to focus on and have dumped boatloads of money into it. The hit pieces that are going out from the DFL side especially are unbelievable. You heard reference just yesterday and today about the anti-Catholic piece that has everybody all riled up against one of the candidates. You've heard, well, actually it was a House candidate, and you have another one that went after an Iraqi war veteran, which has got people all wound up. But the amount of money that they have sunk into just a handful of races shows me how incompetent not only the state DFL party is, but the state Republican Party as well.
So it's the battle of the mental.
Yes. And you look at, like, for example, there's an open Senate seat where I live, 50. Chaudhry was unendorsed by the Democrat Party for unethical behavior, which, by the way, he should have been thrown out ages ago. This was the 4th time that he's done something unethical. So anyway, you have an open seat there, which the Republicans should be all over, and I'm not seeing them being nearly as aggressive in that race as they should be, although they are being helpful. They're not. When you think in some of these races, whether it's Senate or House, they're spending $100,000 on these little races. Think if that money was spread around. So if you go back to the Senate, where there are 21 Republicans out of the 67 seats available, which, remember, the Republicans have never, ever, in the history of since Minnesota started calling them Democrats and Republicans, they had never had a Republican control of the Senate. Unfortunately, the Republicans got very comfortable being in the minority and did nothing, which is how we ended up getting down to 21 Republicans down there in the first place. My goal was to win 20 seats to bring it up to 40 out of the 67, which would, and I keep telling Senjum, our minority leader, once we win these 20 seats, get the hell out of my way. Get the hell out of my way. Let us do something effective as a minority and get some things done, especially with Emmer as governor. Okay. So now I don't think we're going to hit the 20. I don't think so. I wish we were. I think we'll make good strides. I think we'll probably pick up 15 Republican seats in the Senate, but it will still stay with the DFL majority. It'll still have a DFL majority. On the House side of the aisle, you have 134 seats. You have 87 Democrats and 47 Republicans. And that's much more interesting. I think you're going to see the Republicans take control of that. Again, you've got the parties picking and choosing a handful of races to sink boatloads of money into, when if there was a strategic plan by the Republican Party in Minnesota, a coordinated effort, we could have crushed everything in the state of Minnesota from governor on down. As it is, we're having to work.
We're struggling.
Every single
Republicans are struggling for,
yes, every single one of them.
What's wrong with the state party organization? As she looks at the microphone. Well,
first of all,
be careful.
That's why I looked. I'll save that comment for towards the end. It's incompetent leadership. I tried to tell everyone, Tony Sutton should never be the chair of the state of Minnesota. A Republican Party of Minnesota. Never. Michael Broadcorp should never be the deputy chair. And you're seeing...
Why not?
Well, first of all, they aren't leaders. Second of all, they don't think outside the box. And third of all, when you look at their talents, and they have talents, Michael, Minnesota Democrats exposed. fabulous at the dirty work. You don't want your deputy chair doing the dirty work. You want Minnesota Democrats exposed doing the dirty work. Tony Sutton has some very good qualities too. Fundraising wasn't one of them. Learning how to play nice wasn't one of them. The election, which put them into the chair and deputy chair positions respectively, was very divided. When the delegates came in and they took over control of the party, that was a darn close race. Tony and Michael never reached out to the other side of the people who didn't oppose them.
Well, I see
never.
a lot of that. I don't see people reaching out. I don't see people working together. I see people that win just saying, get out, we're going to do this.
Yeah, we're going to do this. Second of all, I am so sick of looking at Tony Sutton's face screaming at me from my TV set, or Michael Broadcorp. And we've got so many talented, wonderful people, articulate people, men, but especially women, that could be the spokesperson. And I think they hate women.
That's what you're going to say. Okay.
Yes. There are no women in the...
Here's what I see. I don't see efforts by the party to reach out to groups that lost and work with them. And
right.
I'm
or minorities, or me too. All over the place.
One other question, which is involves these races where the trend was to get away from the so-called moderate Republican, some people call them Republicans in name only, senators or House, members, and most of them won their primary races, or they're running as independents, as in the case of what's his name? You can't remember his name. Neil Peterson.
Oh, right.
How are those guys going to do, you think?
We did see a big difference between 2008 and 2010. In 2008, a lot of the rhinos won their endorsements, and you saw the party spend a boatload of money on these rhinos. Some of them won, some of them didn't win.
Why did they do that?
They're stupid. They're stupid. Okay, this year, you didn't see as much of that. There seemed to be a little bit more thought this time into, can we win this race? Let's take a look at the numbers. The problem is, they got a new system in place. They used to have voter vault. Now they have, I can't think of what it's called now, Phoenix or something like that. Yeah. When you put crap data in, you get crap results.
Well, what's wrong with the data?
Have you ever gone door knocking for any of the candidates? They give you a list. They give you a list
from Phoenix.
Yes.
It's a list of all the people in your
and it says, here's address 1720. Oh, this is strong GOP. You go knock on the door, they're not strong GOP.
Well, that's just a comment that they can put in that window. In other words, someone put that comment in there.
But you've got a ranking 1 through 5.
But it'll tell you how they voted.
Yeah. Well, nobody knows. Right.
So you're saying you're door knocking
and you go up and it says strong GOP, and they say, get the hell off my property. They have no idea. So garbage in, garbage out. Now you've got candidates out there who are instructed by some of the party leaders that don't go to the strong DFL. Why not? You need their votes too, and especially if the data you're working with is wrong, why would you skip a third of the houses in your district?
Well, the idea is you're not supposed to waste your time with votes you can't.
Right, but if you can't trust the...
See, my theory is what you need teams to go out and knock on doors.
Right.
Which means you need bodies. You need 50 teams to go out and knock on doors.
Well,
in a standard senator house district, you need there's so many, if there's 20,000 people, you can't knock on. Now I do know one of my friends, Scott Brooks, actually has knocked on about 5,000 doors, and he's I don't know what's going to happen, but at least he's worked his.
We've had candidates that have knocked their whole district 2 and 3 times.
It's amazing.
Yes, and sometimes some of them have more help than others, but and I've been out all around the metro area door knocking, all the way out to Woodbury, all the way out to Plymouth. The neighborhoods are so different. I absolutely love it. I mean, you just sense a whole different. But you know what? The same message. What's important to them? Jobs in the economy. Jobs in the economy. It's not illegal immigration. It's not some of the gay marriage. It's not. Yeah. It's not the war in Iraq. It's none of that stuff. It's jobs in the economy. Jobs in the and they know something's wrong.
We'll swing it back to the governor's race and these state races. So if it's jobs in the economy, then it's really a question of
Emmer wins.
Not necessarily, because economy and jobs mean different things to different people. So you have to look at the extant groups of people first, and then say, what does economy and jobs? If I'm a Democrat, fixing the economy and giving me a job is a whole different agenda than if I'm a Republican.
Okay, here's where Emmer gets a lot of the people up north. And that's because they realize government can make me all these promises, but you go up, why isn't that mine open up there?
Wait a minute.
Thanks
they
to the
realize they've been voting Democrat for 70 years.
I know.
They realize what? Nothing.
That's the whole point. But the point that I'm making is the Republican Party, through no thanks to the party, I might add, now has a black sheep union members group. Union members who belong to a union and don't vote Democrat.
How many in that group?
I have no idea, but I know I'm speaking to them next month. Not before the election,
30,
but
100, 10.
yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. We've got teachers, construction workers, you name it.
Excellent.
I know. And even if you've been up to CD8, there are chip signs everywhere in DFL houses. People who, why isn't the mine open? Polymet mine. Construction workers who haven't had a job for 3 years because they're too far down on the list, which I don't really get that. I'm not a union member, so I don't really get that part. But it's a different mentality. It's a different atmosphere. You don't have to be an economist to know there's something wrong. And jobs in the economy is number one, and more government isn't the answer. That's why you're going to see Emmer win. That's why you're going to see a Republican. I won't go so far as to say tsunami, but it's going to be a good year for Republicans.
Well, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I just learned to really be suspicious of these media hype tsunami type thing.
Media, they're all saying, well, Minnesota media, because I'm back on the state of Minnesota now. They're all saying Dayton wins. Dayton wins by 10.
Hang on a second. I'm telling you, this is what you're not getting, because you can go through these Senate races and the House races, and there's so much data for there's very little polling data for the House races. That's just somebody saying that so and so is going to win, and we've already talked about that. The Senate stuff, these races are very close. Boxer, Farina, within a point to 2 points.
Yeah, Farina's in the hospital.
Well, no, the polling data is before she went to the hospital.
Oh.
So Boxer, Farina, very tight. Rand Paul pulling ahead. Ken Buck in Colorado, very tight. Mark Kirk pulling ahead by 2, but you got to be ahead by 10 or 15 in Illinois if you want to plan on. If you're a Republican, you plan on winning, you better be 5 or 10 ahead.
At least.
At least. So I would say that race is too close to call. So, I mean, you get into these individual seats everybody's talking about. The Pat Toomey and Sestak, too close to call. And Toomey's ahead right now. No, yeah, Toomey's.
I think Toomey is ahead now.
Ahead by 2 or something, but you can't call that race. And these are poll averages.
Harry Reid.
It's any Harry Reid, Sherry Engel, again, too close to call. And that's because when you average the polls, one of them's got one of them ahead by 10, one of them's got one of them ahead by 3. One of those polls is probably right, but there in many of these cases you don't have flip backs, and so you'll have one poll will show this guy ahead, one will show the other guy ahead. In Minnesota, we don't have that. Our governor's race shows consistently Dayton ahead by 3, 5, 10, or 11, or whatever. That's why they're saying it. They're not saying, I'm not defending the media, but they're saying it looks like Dayton's going to win because the polls consistently show he's ahead. Now, maybe the polls are overemphasizing the name recognition, because that's the one they know. But that's when they're going to vote for, too, because that's the one they know.
We have 37 governorships up for...
Republicans are going to have good governors.
Yes, they are.
Because they've got
Are you watching the Colorado one?
Yeah.
Tancredo?
Yeah.
I
don't think Tancredo's going to win Colorado.
I hope he does.
But I do think that the Republicans are going to win Michigan. They're probably going to win in Illinois. Some of these races where they're way ahead, they're going to be okay. But Republicans are going to have. I'm telling you, I believe the more moderate scenario. I think it's going to be a mixed bag, and they may fall short of the whatever it is, 40 or 39 seats.
Republicans Governors Association just sent another $1 million to Emmer.
Did you see the thing today that said that the Democrats have actually spent way more than the Republicans?
Oh, I saw that.
So it's all sandbagging.
Almost double.
It's sandbagging. So they've been saying all along, the Republicans are spending too much money, but they've been spending like crazy all day.
Yeah.
So We just have to wait and see.
The money is unbelievable. How about the money in the Bachman-Clark race?
Well, I don't care about the money. That
I don't
makes no
either.
difference to me.
Did you hear George Will last Sunday? George Will said at the end of this election, 4.2, 4.9, whatever it is, $1 billion will be spent on this election. Billions. He said that's 1/2 the advertising budget for Procter & Gamble. Put it in perspective.
Well, it's 300 races, of course. Procter & Gamble
More
has
than that.
7 products
Yeah.
or 25 products.
Exactly.
And you've got 300 or 400 races. It means nothing. It's
I know.
It's a worthless.
I don't have a problem with it either.
It's a worthless number. It's like saying. It's like saying, well, the enthusiasm gap. What the hell is that? The enthusiasm gap. I have said this again and again and again. What exactly are you talking about? Well, we ask people if they're enthusiastic or not. What does that mean? Nothing. And I've now discovered, because I've done more research on this, that this enthusiasm gap thing is not a... It's been used a couple times, and there's been some talk about it, but it's not widely accepted among pollsters that you should talk about, quote-unquote, the enthusiasm gap. Because it's a subjective judgment that you're assessing with a variable response, meaning it's either a 4-point response, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, disagree. So when you get down to splitting that into 4 with a 400 sample or a 900 sample poll, you're getting wild swings for what do you call it? Reliability, and if it's a scale, it's a 10-point scale, it's even worse because you have to pick one of 10 points. So when you get into reliability in terms of the sample versus the actual numbers, you're looking at potential point swings of 10, 5, 14, or 15 points.
But I do think there is something to an enthusiasm gap.
What is there?
I don't know, but 2008, you cannot tell me there wasn't a Democrat
right, and that's the first time it was used.
Yes.
That's the first time it was used, but that doesn't mean it means anything.
Agreed, but there's...
I could have told you without looking at the enthusiasm that the Democrats are going to win in 2008.
I don't know how you measure an enthusiasm.
You can tell.
Yes, and that's where I'll give it a little bit of credit.
But we are not. Republicans are not Democrats, and that's the difference. And see, people keep thinking, "Oh, this happened with Democrats.
It's a different mindset.
This happened with Democrats, so it will happen with Republicans." Don't count on that. You are overestimating. You're overestimating. You're looking at things because you want to be hopeful, and you're saying, "I believe this is going to hurt you. I'm going to be hopeful." I think you're overestimating it. I really do.
Yeah, well, we'll see whose predictions come out, buddy.
Remember, I made 3.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I know.
You
I stuck to mine.
You could be right. I stuck to mine too. I'm not,
yeah, you got 3 of them.
I've got 3, but I believe that the most conservative is probably going to be the one that happens. I believe that they will win. I believe that they will not perform the way the media has. And my chief reason for that is just being a contrarian to the media hype.
Right. Widely recognized political scientist.
But, I believe these guys are going with a hype prediction because that's what these networks want. They want a storyline. This is the way they do things now. The storyline is we're winning the war. Well, then we're going to go and we're going to say, here's all the things going on that prove that we're not winning the war. But the storyline is we're winning the war. Or it's going to rain, except here's why it's not going to rain. It's because then it gives people a reason to watch. And the storyline is the Republicans are going to have this great night. So now they've got this huge hype to live up to. If they win 28 seats, it's a good night for them. I mean, any other time we'd have been happy. But they're going to say, oh, they only won 28. They were supposed to win 117. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so the more wild the predictions. And again, I went and looked at some of these districts where they're saying this guy's going to win. Well, you go in and you look at these districts, the numbers do not support it because there aren't any numbers. So you could say what you say is just as valid as what I say in the Betty McCollum race because there's no polls. Let's say, and that's probably not the good
poll
example.
was back in June.
Then I'm right.
It's a worthless poll.
Right. So you have no idea who's going to win that race. You have no idea.
Well, none of us do.
Well, that's my point. So how can a guy who's
still predict?
Wait. How can a guy who's a quote unquote political analyst go out and say, well, it's going to be a great night, and count all these races as being out for grabs when they don't know squat? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they call people like you, and they say what's going on in that race, and you go, well, so-and-so is going to win. And that's what then they take your prediction, and it becomes rolled into their prediction because they put it into a computer and run it on Excel, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't trust it.
But then they call David Schultz, and David Schultz says Betty McCollum will win hands down.
He could be right.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's neither one of you have any information to
Exactly.
say yay or nay. And going around
Other than
counting
I've
yard
been
signs
around.
doesn't mean a thing.
But again, I think the right side of the aisle is more motivated than you give them credit for.
Okay.
And that's why they're going to win.
And we shall
Maybe
see on
not
election
by as big a margin as I would hope for,
And I will be...
because I just can't believe how dang stupid some of the voters are.
And I will be in my election headquarters.
Yes.
Hopefully popping in with you guys.
Yes.
Every now and then.
Yes.
So, we'll see what happens on election night. I will be here at election headquarters and hopefully joining Sue and Ron Rosenbaum and Chris Baker on election night on K-Talk. We don't know if we're going to do it or not, but hopefully I'll do it from here. That was my plan, because I can then, I've got all these machines here and I've got all this internet capability here, so I'd be able to look stuff up, and we've talked about that a little bit, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for listening to the Bob Davis Podcast. This is Podcast 50, Election 2010 coverage. Thanks especially to my friend Sue Jeffers for taking the time with me. It was actually very gracious of her to do that for me, and thank you, Sue. And yes, the Bob Davis Podcast spot lunch. So send your comments to bdavis7843@yahoo.com. Check me out on Facebook. All you have to do is follow the links, and on Twitter until Podcast 51, which may be over this weekend, just to wrap up all the political races, but you may just be joining me on election night and listen for a podcast after that. So until then,